If you haven't been watching Exandria Unlimited Calamity, you still may have seen a clip circulating of Brennan Lee Mulligan portraying a character named Bolo. Well, if you don't know, I have an improv background, just like Brennan Lee Mulligan, and I love talking about improv, and I saw something that I think you can use in your game to be more like Brennan when he yes-ands the players when he is the DM. First, I want to talk a little bit about improv and how I think this is really the main thing that has led to D&D 5th Edition's explosive popularity, even more so than Critical Role, Matt Colville, XP to Level 3, and other influencers, and just the system itself. I think the way was paved by Whose Line Is It Anyway?
8:30, count my money. 9 o'clock, count my money. 10 o'clock.
Now, people like me who grew up with Whose Line Is It Anyway being talked about often say to themselves, well, I can't do improv, but man, they are hilarious. But they don't realize that D&D is basically long-form improv with a series of prompts and a game to it, very literally, in the game mechanics. Long-form improv means you do a long story, and it's not just like a few minutes long of a very ephemeral scene, which if you've watched Whose Line Is It Anyway, is short form. They do very quick scenes, and there's a game very specifically explained to you and a prompt. Long form often gets a prompt, and there isn't like a gamed structure, but there might be a story structure that the group doing the improv kind of knows they're going to follow as they improvise within those parameters. So yes, improv does have parameters, and it's not all just made up. It usually has agreed upon principles, at least, that generally are going to be followed. So when you're playing Dungeons & Dragons, and something funny happens as you're role-playing between the DM and your character, that's improv. The prompt you received was whatever scenario you are in with the character you're talking to in role-playing, the backstory and the personality you've given your character, and the game to it is that it's going to be affected by dice rolls.
Like you're saying, these games often don't have win conditions. It's actually one of the things I've often said in terms of like, is D&D a game or is it something else? I kind of slot a lot of these into something else because not that all games need a win or lose condition, but I'll often be like, this seems a lot more like a collaborative story writing exercise with a kind of mini game baked into it than it does, it's got more in common with a writer's room than it does with like a game of chess, right? You're never going to win the game, but there will be moments of failure or success throughout.
I completely agree with Brennan here. And I believe this is the main reason that D&D is so popular. It's not just the war gamers that are enjoying it anymore. Sure, role-playing was always part of the game, but much more so now. From what I can tell of commentary from what the game used to be like to now, I would say role-playing or improv is very much more part of the game. I played D&D with my dad, and he said it used to very much be just say what you're doing and say if you're going to roll dice or something like that, and less of like getting into character and speaking as your character. So back to Brennan Lee Mulligan and Exandria Unlimited Calamity. Here is the clip where Brennan is given a suggestion, more or less. I'm talking about this in improv terms, not D&D terms. I call this out because there is an improv exercise, which improv exercises often have different names depending on where you are and who you're doing improv with. But the name I learned for it is Here Comes Charlie. They kind of set up some character that is not present yet. Like, oh, have you heard of Charlie? Yeah, he walks with a limp because of his time in the war. And he talks like he just sucked helium out of a balloon because one time he did, and then his voice never returned to normal. And they just kind of set up this character that someone is going to walk into the scene and have to portray and justify. This is exactly what Sam does for Brennan. And you can see Sam pauses and he realizes he's putting Brennan on the spot, and he takes a moment to kind of let Brennan prepare as Sam describes a little bit about this character. And they might sound like really small details, but look how Brennan just takes every detail he's given and pulls it out for more details. Check it out.
Come with a +1.
Let's say yes.
Oh.
Let's say yes.
Who did you bring?
I brought, it takes me a second to remember her name.
Okay.
But her name is Bolo, I think.
Bolo?
She's a friend of a friend. We were sort of set up. This is the second time I've ever met her. She's gorgeous, isn't she?
Melinda,
Melandra mentioned that people were asking for +1s at the last
Oh
minute.
yes,
and I said yes.
I told everyone that would be fine. So.
All right, fantastic.
Nice to meet you, I'm Bolo.
No, come on, man.
How many
Bolo.
she has?
Bolo wants to be a reporter like me.
Eventually, I'm going to be a reporter.
I'm taking her under my wing, and I think she's got a bright future.
This your house?
Yes.
Like Bolo in the
Yes.
city.
You know what, Bolo? Why don't you go fetch us some drinks and just do some mingling, you know? There's a lot of stuff that you can hear by picking up on people's conversations in these events. You might get some leads and clues. So start practicing, maybe take some mental notes and get us some drinks, all right?
In AR, sometimes it is illegal to ask these questions.
From AR. You know, it's fascinating. I heard that there was some stowaways from the last time we visited
Oh, she's
AR.
not a stowaway at all. I sent a letter and had her brought here, so.
Yes.
Sorry,
You want
just...
drinks?
Yes, please.
Okay. She walks off.
Isn't she delightful?
Kill everybody. You're gonna kill us all.
Fantastic.
This was so much fun for Travis that later on his character, he specifically says, I'm going to go after Bolo and see what she's up to. And he wants to go have a private conversation with her because role-playing with her was so fun. And I was laughing so hard when I watched this live, all this stuff with Bolo, because I just love Brennan Lee Mulligan's improv skills and the way that the players interacted and appreciated this character. So how can you use this? If you are a player and you have a character from your background or there's someone coming in, you can kind of set up the DM for success by giving them just a few details, which is like an improv prompt. I find players often give very little details for the NPCs and their backgrounds or NPCs that they want to see other than a name and a relationship, which is fine. But unless the DM's done a lot of improv, they might not be able to pull a lot off with that unless they just do something random and it ends up being gold. So give your DM some time, give them a few, let's say, seed words or prompts to give details to whatever NPC that you're bringing into the game and let the DM take it from there. If you're the DM, feel free to, almost like you're emceeing an improv game like Drew Carey does on Whose Line Is It Anyway, and say, hey audience, give me a detail about this NPC. What do you want to see out of them? If it's a shopkeeper or something like that. Matt Mercer's had a lot of success doing some very memorable NPCs as shopkeepers, and you can too. If you're not sure what to do, just get a few prompts from your players. Give me a weird quirk about this person and maybe something about their appearance or an object that they wear that is interesting, and let your players give that to you and then say, okay, yeah, I've got a character based on that, and you role play it from there. And then you've created an improvisational environment for one thing and let them know it's okay to improvise in this way. And yes, you can have so much fun with that. So remember, here comes Charlie. Trigger that in your mind when you're about to bring in an NPC and you want some more details for them. You and your players, let them know about this concept. You can do this as a warm-up before you roleplay and start your session to get people primed. Warm-ups are really great. I think people should do more warm-ups before they start D&D, by the way. It makes role-playing a lot easier to jump into it. But also at session 0, when people are trying to think of backgrounds, you could use Mad Libs and other prompt formats from improv to help people come up with their backstories or how they know each other, or just find some fun quirks for their characters that for the whole campaign is going to make it more fun to play that character. Remember, here comes Charlie, and remember that improv might just be the real reason that D&D 5e has taken off so much. Yeah, there's the marketing, yeah, there's the influencers, but why are people enjoying playing it so much? And I believe it is because there's the brand recognition, the ease of entry, and the improv that just makes it so fun regardless of whether you know the mechanics super well. I really believe that. That's my new big theory. Check out my other improv video. I've got like 17 tips for role-playing there that are based on my improv skills. And comment on this video your favorite improv strategies or things that you've found useful, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.